Hello and welcome to Graduate Employability and Alumni Engagement, the future measures of education success, a Times Higher Education webinar in partnership with SeeMeCV. My name is Gitanjali Goswami. I'm the branded content manager for the APAC region at Times Higher Education, and I'll be chairing today's discussion. In this webinar, I will introduce the panel. Then we will have a short discussion about SeeMeCV's Maturity and Readiness Assessment Survey, or the MARA survey. Then I will give a brief idea about the webinar topic. We will dive into the panel discussion, followed by the audience Q&A in the final 10 minutes of the webinar duration. And after this segment, I will say my closing remarks. So I am delighted to be joined by a wonderful panel of experts from academia and industry, who are Corinne Ong, who is the Director of Career Services and Employability at Singapore Management University, Bernard Nicholas Villamore, who is the President at Cebu Institute of Technology University, Vikan Sakarinto, who is the Director at Gistraf Polytechnic, and last but not the least, we have Sylvia Sika, who is the Customer Success Director for Singapore, Indonesia, and the Philippines at SeeMeCV. A warm welcome to all the panelists, and thank you for joining us today. There will be the opportunity to put questions to the panel during the final 10 minutes of the hour that we have scheduled. So please feel free to write any questions in the Q&A icon located at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will answer as many as possible before the end. So before we begin, I would like to briefly hand over to Sylvia. So over to you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Geeta. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. For those in the APAC or Southeast Asia region, I hope you've had your lunch. For those in the other time zones in the world, very nice to meet all of you, and I hope you have a chance to interact later. So I'd like to take just maybe a couple of minutes before I dive into our MARA, or Maturity and Readiness Assessment, to briefly introduce ourselves. So we are SeeMeCV. We are a fully digitized talent supply chain ecosystem, and we connect the needs of education, government, industry, and the workforce. What we do is we accelerate and innovate borders recruitment. Location is no longer a limitation in connecting with opportunities. And this is especially important with the emergence of hybrid and remote working. Our easy, intuitive interface enables deep, real-time, personal, corporate connectivity, and it provides all the analytics you need. So we started in Singapore in 2007, and we have rapidly expanded across Southeast Asia, but we will be identifying other expansion markets, especially this year. So a quick look at our solutions. We have a solutions architect, which allows any student, and specifically in focus for today's webinar in the education space, it allows students to apply to virtually any employer anywhere in the world with a formatted video CV. So for solutions, the Talent Connect portal, each school gets their own branded portal for their students, alumni, and employer community. Rapid deployment and self-serve setup means that we can deploy as quickly as 3 hours or as long as 2 weeks. That's our record time at this moment. The system also provides an integrated tracer study to ensure tracking of students, especially after graduation. Our virtual events platform, hybrid events as well. It's a highly visual and creative design, while we still focus on the connectivity between talent and opportunity. Mentoring and coaching, it can be used within the education space to connect alumni with undergrads in industry or even within companies to create better career connections and, of course, reduce churn. It's all about numbers. We all want analytics. So cross-application reporting analytics, we have inbuilt analytics that provides instant information to be sure. We have data-driven decision-making. So we can aggregate data, whether it's within the geo, skills, industry, any type of analysis that needs to be done. So thousands of companies have already used our solutions, and just some logos, examples of our customers that we have deployed our solutions to. Some recent partnerships in the Philippines. Very exciting progress that we have made. And of course, we have Indonesia as well. Ooh, it jumped. There we go. So let's talk about maturity and readiness assessment. Now, you're going to hear MARA a lot, and MARA essentially is the short form for maturity and readiness assessment. Now, going back to the webinar topic, which I'm sure Geeta will introduce us to later, we talk about defining the success of graduates and alumni in education. And we believe that education doesn't equate to employment, but with career services, especially in higher learning, now this has proven to be successful. Now, as a technology provider such as ourselves, we have found that the career services teams, especially in IHLs or higher learning educations, have different readiness levels. And of course, that equates to adoption capability. Now, how do we ensure that the different levels of maturity and readiness now can adopt? And what we have is our MARA, our Maturity and Readiness Assessment. That is a tool that we have designed through lots of research and our experience in deploying these solutions to specifically institutions. It's an assessment that revolves around 4 key objectives or pivotal objectives here. We have people. We want to understand how ready, how mature are the resources within the career services team. Are they equipped to handle or to manage the end-to-end career services tasks? We have process. Now, this is where we evaluate the maturity of these processes. How complex are they? How many layers of processes are there? And are they effective? We have technology. Now, is the career services team ready for digitization, or are they already advanced? And we have collaboration readiness. Now, how does the team work? Do they work internally? Do they work with other stakeholders in the institution? Do they have the necessary resources to collaborate within the career services team and the efforts of the team? So 4 objectives. We have a questionnaire and questions for each objectives, and the respondent then answers and selects the answer. And what we have is a score. And we have 5 categories that a respondent can fall into. We'll talk more about MARA later, and you have the opportunity to take that as well. The Explorer, Adopter, Intermediate, Advanced, and of course the Expert. So depending on the score that you grade, you will be assigned the category. But ultimately, what these scores signify is whether or not the career services team in these institutions are ready for digitizing their career services ultimately. So some numbers that we've done, just to share with all of you to get started. Now, we've done this regionally, and we've deployed this regionally, specifically in Singapore, Philippines, and Indonesia. We have done them mostly with associations. So these associations have their group of schools. And what we've noticed is that, now keep in mind that the respondents here are typically deans, heads of these career services teams that complete this assessment. Now, we've found that most of them fall or have answered and have scored between the advanced and intermediate range. And what that really means is that they think they're ready and they have assessed that they're ready, which is a good sign, especially in the Southeast Asian region. Now, what will be interesting as we talk about in a bit, I'm sure in the panel as well, is what and how that translates to their team within the institution in itself. Now, without going too much into detail, before I hand this over to Geeta, just a quick conclusion over our findings that we've had is that while these schools have scored, especially in the advanced tiers or grading, we have found that especially in the technology. So while the teams are advanced, they have processes, but adopting to the technology, now that's still a part of the survey or part of the readiness that requires work on. And I'd like to hand this over back to Geeta, who's going to give us a quick introduction, and I'll be happy to share more insights into MARA with the rest of the panelists today.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And I'm sure that this has been extremely helpful for a lot of our audience who are really looking for a lot more ways to enhance graduate employability in the respective regions or countries. So thank you so much, Sylvia. So this webinar will discuss about how important measures of university success, such as graduate employability and alumni engagement, can improve reputation, but also emerging as critical factors in accreditation in the higher education sector across the APAC region. Moreover, it is equally important to measure the talent employability readiness by using tools such as the Maturity and Readiness Assessment Study, or the MARA survey, that Sylvia has very well encapsulated and shared how that can benefit the universities in various ways. And this helps to assess the level of readiness of 4 major functions within student career services and benchmarks against industry and inter-country results. So this is one of the most important topics of discussion due to graduate employability skills gap that continues to exist. And as Sylvia has just mentioned just a few minutes ago, that education is not equivalent to employment. And this is where career services can fill up that gap, or at least make that equation possible in every which way. But I'm sure that the skills gap must be something of a worry for a lot of students around the world, maybe in the APAC region. So I would love to start this discussion by asking Pak Weekend about the kind of conversations you're having around increasing graduate employability, for example, through career services, coaching, and mentoring at your institute. Pak Weekend?
Oh, yes. Well, thank you very much. Okay. Well, I would like to let you know first that I'm currently as a director in a polytechnic and academy that I developed. But 2 years ago, I complete my period to be the Director General of Vocational Education in Ministry of Education. So I was responsible for 40,000 vocational high schools and more than 2,000 polytechnics exposed in Indonesia. So yeah, we did have a challenge to deal with the employability as for our graduates. Some of us really got to be difficult to get a job, and yes, for sure that's I think it's never ending story. So the thing is that as the Mara presentation, and I would like to let you know that I'm quite familiar with SeeMeCV actually. I really know quite deep about SeeMeCV, how it works, how the traditional study can be assessed by means of SeeMeCV system, and my university, my campus as well, we use SeeMeCV, and I also introduced SeeMeCV to many campuses in Indonesia. So I really know how it works. So the thing is that as we talk about the supply, we provide the graduates and the user that will absorb the graduates. It's like a supply and demand. The thing is, of course, the existence of SeeMeCV, the Mara, and all as well as Mara system is, of course, is very important, because if we develop the education system very well, the link and match teaching factory, innovative curriculum, and we also develop always the teachers, and also we create a link and match with industries and etc. I'm sure it will not ensure one it won't ensure 100% of our graduate will be absorbed. Of course, in the side of the user industry, of course, the number of the jobs will not be as many as the graduates, as every years increase all the time. But the thing is that if we provide the graduates with the education system with many innovation efforts, without the strong career center system like SeeMeCV, Mara, I'm sure we cannot deal with this gap very completely. So the thing is that career center like SeeMeCV, Mara will ensure much more convincing to the students as well, the students and also the company as well, because sorry, I'm the middle of the seminar. It's kind of noisy because to me, let me just conclude my speech. The thing is that the link and match between the education sectors and the industry sectors, this is not as easy we think, because what the industry want and what the teachers think, it always it's like never-ending story. It won't last forever. I mean, the teacher will think not how exactly the industrial world. And the thing is that soft skills, characters, and attitudes, that those are the things that the industry really need from the graduates. But unfortunately, teachers, educators, we kind of more into hard skills, cognitive, and not too practical. Yeah, we always think that we we have taught all practical stuff from industry to the students. Yes, but too many materials, too many subjects, and the teachers always teach in the way when they was taught by the previous teachers and etc. And we know industry move very quick and they are changing all the time. And my last impression is that soft skills, character, attitude somehow cannot be created completely by the educators. So SeeMeCV or career center system or Mara treasure study and how to make it link it not one by one education system and company, but many companies and many education institute to be one connected in the digital system with AI. I'm sure, I think it's going to be promising, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be the solution of our future. So back to you, Gita.
Thank you so much. And yes, you have raised pertinent questions about why the skills exist. One of the reasons is that industries do need the interpersonal skills of soft skills education, which the curricula needs to embed more. And maybe if I could come to Corinne, and I know that you are the director of career service and employability, which is another department altogether, SMU. So I'm sure that as Park Beacon has mentioned, that how important it is the career services can fill up this kind of gap or challenges. But would like to know your point of view about how important career services can play in this role and to what extent they can help universities to bridge this skills gap. Over to you.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much, Gitan. Maybe I will start off by thanking THE as well as SeeMeCV for this opportunity to come to this platform. What I understand is this is the inaugural event, right? To get all the like-minded people who are passionate about graduate employment as well as alumni success to be on this cross-sharing platform together. So where I'm coming from is someone who has the privilege to work in 3 universities. I must confess that I'm still pretty new to SMU. This is the start of my 3rd week. But prior to that, I has actually spent 12 years in the National University of Singapore as the head of the Career Center, followed by NTU, Nanyang Technological University, for another 3 years. And even prior to career services, I was actually in the civil service, helping industry to address their human capital challenges, as well as to develop the industry development. So, and of course, 3 years of experience as a recruiter for my organization. So this is my background and the context I'm coming from. Given my experience and the learnings working in the 3 universities, I have 3 key concepts that I would like to share with all of you, and perhaps we can discuss this further. I think number 1 is this thing about it really takes a village to raise a child. It's the same for the university. It's the same when it comes to achieving graduate employment. We need to work with all the stakeholders internally, especially with the schools, to make sure that our curriculum actually meet the in-demand skills that the industry needs. Internally, also work with some of the key stakeholders like admission office, so that we recruit the right students, right profile to join the university. Work with the student life office to make sure that the students have meaningful student activities, which will help to build the soft skills that we can't just mention, which is very important because employers hire a person, not just a piece of paper. right? It's about the character, it's about the soft skills, which a lot of things you actually learn outside the classroom, outside the curriculum. And of course, alumni. I always feel that alumni is a very key stakeholder in terms of this graduate employment. And in my experience, especially where I used to work in the government sector, I think working together in the whole talent ecosystem, especially with some of the key government ministries, like the Ministry of Manpower, Trade and Industry, and of course, Ministry of Education, right? In the industry space, we are talking about working closely with the trade association, with the employers, so that we can actually try to address the demand as well with the supply. Yeah. And increasingly, we are looking at a global market, right? So we are talking about borderless employment. We are talking about remote work. So it's beyond domestic, right? So there's many challenges, there are many exciting opportunities as well that come about. And which is why to help us to cope with this complexity, it's also very important that we work with the right technology partner that can help the career services to scale up our operations. Otherwise, it's just impossible to scale when you're still using paper and pen and Excel spreadsheet to try to do your analytics and to try to, do a tracer study of your alumni success. It's impossible. So it's very important we work with the right partners who can help us to succeed, be IT partner, be even research partner. The other two thing I would like to share is this thing about prevention better than cure, right? Every career services office will be very beholden to how our students turn out to be. And I always believe that prevention is better than cure, right? I would like to plant the right seeds right from the start, right from the day one entering the university. Why? Because they have 4 years with us, right? So how are we value adding to them as educators to develop them in their 4 years with us? How are we tracking their development through curriculum, through soft skills, through their character development? Because if we work very closely as a community, naturally the graduate employment will take care by itself, right? My last one is actually KYC, which I borrowed this term, this jargon from the banking sector. Know your customers. So it's very important that we know our product well. And in this case, the products is actually our students, right? So when we know the product, the programs, the students, that is where we can engage the industry better to raise the awareness, to actually sell what is the uniqueness of our students and how can they bring into the table. Again, it's so important that we know how to leverage technology to help us to engage employers, especially we're talking about a global market now. Yeah, I just want to share our experience actually with SeeMeCV. In my previous university, NTU, seriously, without SeeMeCV, I think we will literally die during COVID. Because of SeeMeCV, it allowed us to still continue to hold our career fair virtually, where we engage 300 over employers and our alumni to hire our students, because we can't do a physical career fair during COVID. So this is something that I'm very thankful for. Yeah. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corinne. And you have touched a lot of points. One of them is collaboration, is to get all the important stakeholders in the higher education sector together. Secondly, is the KYC point. I mean, that's a brilliant application of a banking concept in education. That's actually brilliant. Thank you so much, Corinne. And yes, that is a very pertinent point because all students do have its own uniqueness, strengths. But I think a lot of students like myself, initially when I struggled, is to sell my own selling point, send my own USB to the industry partners. Because even if I'm good at a particular work, how am I going to sell it? And this is exactly where career services step in. Because what they do is like career services ensure that they groom the students with the market trends and also meet industry partners to find the right candidates for the job. But of course, we need a blueprint, a strategy to ensure that this is clearly done and track the development. So with this point, maybe if I may go to Bernard now, then as the president of the Institute, if I may request you to share certain perspectives of the kind of strategies or approaches you are taking, at least, over the recent months, to overcome this kind of challenges. Over to you.
Thank you, Geeta. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those from another time zone. Corinne mentioned a word, uniqueness, and that's similar to the differentiation that I would like to, what we like to do with our students. So when we engage with industry, you would like them to believe that, for example, this company would say, why would they hire students coming from our school? So some of the things we've done is like we set up multidisciplinary teams of students, like say, as an engineering school, we have students from the electronics, from electrical, mechanical, computer, industrial, chemical, and we involve them. We go to a company, usually that company has an alumni who is a manager who opens doors for us. And we tell them that that manager, can we solve a problem in your company? So we've experienced this, a huge multinational company with several managers, alumni who are seated to open, or the gatekeepers. They give us opportunities to solve problems for them. So these are real world problems. So for example, this company who's into robotics gave their high-end equipment for us to develop such a robot to be used in their shop floor. So I think that student experience is vital, because if we don't have that actual differentiation, the depth of student experience, engage with alumni who are spread across different industries, we won't be able to, no matter what we do, to communicate, to hire our students. They would become the company, like that company who asked our students to build a robot for them, would naturally hire those students who are still second years, third year students. By the time they graduate, those skills are already there, problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills. Because as we can mention, it's so hard for a teacher to teach soft skills. The student has to experience it himself, herself. So we build this virtuous cycle that when these students are hired by that company, they know that when they want to hire students or employees, potential star employees, they would get from our school or your institution. So that is in one simple way, the differentiation. So that has to go to be operationalized by each department, not just by the career services can create, like what we did, sort of a passport. From first year, you already have a passport. You've done the trainings, the basic trainings on leadership skills, technopreneurship, or whatever field that you're into, creative. So we expose them in various fields so they can find where their passion is. So by the time when you are, if SeeMeCV can also already show to the potential employers, for example, they go to our school, and they can view, oh, we have students who are in robotics, they're champions in national competitions. We have students who are champions in national and international competitions. So they would naturally, be curious to check out our students. So it also has a lot of, the leadership has to be on board, not just leave it to the career services, up to the top level, has to be passionate about branding the school. I also wear a different hat as the president of the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities. So that's a 91-year-old association of private schools here in the Philippines. And I've been the president. So we also have what I've learned from being the president of PACU. My mentors are the presidents of the other schools. So we share our best practices. In fact, in May, we will be visiting Incheon Global Campus. Several presidents will be visiting, and we'll learn also from Seoul, Incheon, different schools, how they are practicing. Well, I would like to say differentiation, how they make their students unique, like what Corinne said. And that skills gap, I guess, is also answered by the practical experience in industry. So the students, aside from them joining competitions, that's just part of the letting them get used to the competitive nature of, the academics. But how do we, I like to use the word, how do we excite them? How do we excite them that they create their own student org, they champion an SDG goal, because that's what we are doing in our partnership with a huge university in Manila, De La Salle University. Myself being an alumnus, that's my alma mater. So that's my way of paying forward to the school who helped nurture me. So using my network, I can also extend being an SDG champion in our region. So in our region, we have about 100 plus higher education institutions. So imagine that's the network that's passing. So that virtuous cycle, I would like that to happen. And I think SeeMeCV is the platform, an answer. Before the pandemic, because we don't have a career services building. Our friends have buildings for career services, and during the pandemic, they all went online. So we thought, oh, we might not have to invest in a building. So with SeeMeCV there, we've saved millions, but have reached out to more people. So thank you to SeeMeCV. Thank you, Geeta.
Okay, thank you so much. You have touched upon how it is important to have the critical skills and in what ways alumni can play a role in every which way possible. Just want to again go back to Bernard and understand that you have explained how from the first year onwards students can be groomed and not only explore their their strength or USB, but also how they can sell it well to the industry and convince them that they can play a huge role in the industry. But after when the graduates, get a job, when they enter the industry, how do you really keep a track of how well your alumni are doing well in the industry? Do you conduct any alumni tracer study, or do you go beyond that tracer study and have feedback loops? And maybe you engage with alumni to understand what's happening in the industry? Is that what you do?
There's two things, Geeta. First is we do have an industry, like an annual for the per department. So for the hospitality department, they engage alumni who are in that industry, whether coming from the Philippines or abroad, to let us know what's going on, to see what are the gaps. Of course, we see a lot of gaps because, like what we can said, we are slower than industry. So industry is so fast in developing. So the second is it is very, very, very difficult to do a tracer study. Once they're working, they're kind of like when they get the email, there's no reason or there's no, motivation to answer what's in it for them. It's an additional maybe 5 minutes or more, and who has the 5 minutes, they'd rather spend it in something else. So that's really a challenge. But accreditation would needs us to be able to find out where they are. It is only when they are older or they are retired, that's when they come back. But we want to reach out to the younger ones. Oh, how are you doing? Maybe there's an opportunity, because there's this company that I know of who empowers all their employees to find their own personal social responsibility, and the company will fund them. So if we can tap into those alumni who are in such companies, then they might as well, if they were involved in a student organization, so they can say, oh, I will give back to SDG 4, quality education. I'll give back to my school by funneling the resources of my huge multinational company into something that means a lot to him or her. So it's really relationship building. So that starts from first year. If they're happy with your school, when they graduate, maybe sometime they will find it in their heart to, look back. Like me, it took me 30 years to call my alma mater. What can I do? So it's a process. Thank you, Geeta.
Thank you so much. And I think until now, we have had discussions about collaborations, getting important people on board, also picking up the right technology. I think Corinne has mentioned about it's important to pick the right technology, especially because if there's so much of advancements in technology, how do you know which one to pick? Because you also need the time to integrate and check for yourself what works for you or not. So with this in mind, I'll go to Sylvia. So if I may request you to maybe share certain observations or what kind of conversations you're having with the university partners as well as industry in terms of picking the right technology and how they can integrate it well in their career service processes.
Yeah,
Sylvia.
for sure. So I'll work backwards, Geeta, with your question. So the first thing is bridging the bridge between industry and companies. Now, the challenge that I have seen and I've heard through our customers is too many platforms. I need to be here, I need to be there, and data gets lost. Now, I think we talked about a digital passport, sort of like a passport, a little bit with Bernard earlier. You shared that. Now, how long does the student keep it with them? So when they go on and they go into the industry, into the workforce, now that data gets lost or archived somewhere. Now, to get that back, they probably need to go back to the school. And the second issue or the sub-issue with that is it's not recognized by the industry. So that challenge, is a problem and a problem that I'm not going to say that, oh, we have solved this issue, but we hear that and we understand. And earlier in my introduction, I shared about holistic. And I want to emphasize this word here. Now, holistic in the ecosystem. And that's a term David, our founder, likes to use a lot. So when we talk about industry, we talk about job seekers, we talk about the career services team, the education partners. Now, Corinne said her first point, it takes a village to raise a child, right? There's so many stakeholders involved in this process. Now, these stakeholders are all part of the ecosystem. And what's important is to allow the ecosystem to communicate with each other and not lose that data. So the importance of technology there, for sure. I would also want to touch a little bit about alumni. Now, we talked about, or we heard from Bernard especially, just about the challenge that he faces with alumni tracer study, and that being around low response rates specifically. And going back to one of our MARA findings now, in the people, process, technology, and collaboration. Now, we have a few questions around engagement with the different types of student and alumni demographic. Now, what we've found is a lot of the career services teams have fantastic processes around internships, immersions. So they either have this with credit bearing. In Singapore, we call that credit bearing, or it's part of a module completion. So that's great. And that targets typically your graduating cohort. Now, the group that gets left behind is, and we see that in our MARA responses, is alumni. Now, alumni engagement, when we talk about it, when does it really start? Now, it doesn't start after the student graduates. It starts with when they join the institution, whether it's a high school, whether it is a university. From year one it starts, and they carry that with them, keeping them engaged through that journey from education all the way to graduation, and then giving back. And that's a cycle, right? And what we've noticed is that the schools that have adopted, and now about 1.5 to 2 years later, our legacy schools that have been on our platform now are starting to see successful alumni engagement because of that. Now, because they keep them engaged and continuing that cycle through continuous engagement has enabled better alumni responses, tracking, tracer study. Especially, it's a big win when we see completion and get that data sets as well. So just some insights tying in with Mara, Geeta. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And yes, you did mention about how the MARA survey or the technology in general can be used in every which way to keep a track, and alumni plays a huge role. And that can be, maybe you can form a good engagement with them. I think both Bernard and Sylvia's mentioned that first year onwards, you need to develop that kind of bond. But also just out of maybe curiosity, just like to know that when the universities, integrate technology, how can universities really measure the effectiveness as in when they integrate? How can they measure to what extent the technology has been integrated? Is there any way that online platforms or SaaS solutions can help in that?
Yes, for sure. So there are a few stages that we use to get good analytics and to understand. Now, it starts with adoption at onboarding. So the career services team actually setting that up. So time taken to onboarding is a big metric of the career services team. Now going into specific measures around the users and their adoption of the platform, it starts with, of course, we want to know how many users are on the platform through registration numbers. But apart from that, what's a good key measure is also completion of their profiles. Now, I'm sure not just myself, but SaaS businesses and maybe even you attendees here on this call can relate. Sometimes you create profiles or you register for an account on a site, you don't complete your profile. Now, that's not useful information to the technology owners or the career services team. So in this case, completion of profile is a good measure of the product adoption. We also have then, what are the success measures of the portal? Now, that's a key question here, I believe. And that is ultimately the usage of the platform, as well as we can measure that through clicks in the platform, engagement, some advanced analytics around that, and ultimately job application. Now, facilitating that job application, measuring, and now this is a challenge, how many of those applications are successful? Now, employees are very busy. They sign up on the portal, they post their jobs. They may not necessarily respond to the job applications. Maybe they have externally, offline, maybe they called, maybe they email. But a challenge that we are working towards, and I think we may have found a solution, is to understanding the success rate of the job applications. So these are typically some of the key measures or our metrics within the technology that we deploy.
Okay, thank you so much. And yes, that's a very vital point you've mentioned, that even if the job applications out there on the platform, not necessarily industry partners may just look at it. So that is something the audience will have to bear in mind when they're going to apply some, the job profiles. So let's see if we can get that kind of solution to make the industry partners look at it. So anyways, so let's go back to the discussion. And yes, I think all the panelists have said one thing that's very common, is getting the stakeholders on board. So definitely each one of you have expressed how important it is and the role that collaboration plays. But I'm sure that somewhere when you have a collaboration, you can also get their feedback, understand their perspectives. And somewhere that does influence your strategy and your blueprint for the future plans. So maybe if I go to Pakwikan, and if you can share your perspective of how, for example, alumni engagement or industry collaborations, or maybe other university or other edtech collaborations help you to enhance, or maybe enhance your blueprint or your strategies in order to enhance the career service.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I would say that SeeMeCV system is, to me, is one of the most sophisticated system in terms of career centers to deal with this problem. Yeah, I would say this is one of the most sophisticated system. And as I have compared to several other systems, it proves me that it shows that yes, this is very sophisticated system. From the job fairs up to the employment and all the study. But what we have been facing all the time, the challenge is that how we can really push the students and also the teachers and also industry to be aware to have habit in using this system. If we push the students in the last year, just before they graduate, then I think it's going to be late. I mean, okay, students, when they come to almost the end of the study, and then we push them to deal with the system, I think it's going to be late. So we have to make them from the first or sophomore years of their study to really get into it. So they will get used to it. And also how the teachers can be very very strategically to develop this into their teaching material. I don't know how it exactly can be done, but I'm sure there will be some things that teachers can learn from the data science of these activities from SeeMeCV to be engaged into their teaching material. And last but not least, the industries. Some industries, they think that, well, um, uh, we've been using our system. I mean, they already have their own system. So when we ask them to migrate, to move into the system, that also one challenge. And the thing is that, and the next thing is that when those industries, teachers, students can be really engaged or aggregate into the system, how they can maintain their activities. I mean, one, we push the students to be engaged on the system, and when they think that what's good for me, I mean, what's the benefit? I mean, what do I get by joining the system? If we cannot maintain the benefits, the usability, and I mean, we cannot satisfy the users, then also one thing. But to me, back again, in terms of the features, in terms of the facilities, the system is very, very sophisticated and very making easy in many aspects. Yeah, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. And yes, we have just few minutes before we get into the audience Q&A, but before that, love to thank our audience for asking so many questions, and they're all very interesting. Maybe let's not waste much time and let's dive into the audience Q&A, because a lot of good questions they have. Maybe, yes, there's one question I find very interesting that's asked by Peter. The question is, what are the key metrics that should be used to measure the success of education programs in terms of graduate employability? How can we effectively track and assess the impact of alumni engagement activities on graduates' career? So this question is open for all the panel. So anyone would like to maybe respond to this question? Anyone? Maybe I can ask Corinne. Corinne, share your perspective.
Okay, in terms of career services measure of success, usually we will look, I mean, this is Singapore context. Okay, I'm not sure about whether it applies to other countries. But for the undergraduates, our Ministry of Education track very closely the full-time employment of our students. So it's not even overall employment, it's actually full-time employment. Yeah, so that is one very key measure of employment outcomes. Then the next thing is we look at salary, right? So salary, our focus is actually median salary, not mean, because you always will have outliers. So these are the two key indicators that we track when it comes to undergraduate employment outcomes. When it comes to postgraduates, it's a bit different, right? So it depends on whether you're looking at PhD programs or you're looking at master's programs. Then it depends on where they fall, right? I mean, for MBA program, they have their own FT ranking, which is very specialized. But again, usually these are the two indicators. Full-time employment, where are the jobs they ended up with, and what is their salaries they're getting. When it comes to alumni, based on my experience, I think the key is there are two folds. The first one is to what extent they are engaged with the university, right? To what extent they felt, as an alumni, they felt valued by the university. And of course, alumni employment outcomes 5 years after they graduate. So this is how we track our alumni outcome, 5 years post-graduation.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a next question that is directed to Sylvia. It's about SeeMeCV. So a question asked by Jonathan. So the question is that can the alumni use SeeMeCV to mentor current students or recent graduates by sharing career advice and insights? Sylvia.
Mhm. Yeah. So the direct answer to that is yes, they can. So our SeeMe Mentor, which is our mentoring and coaching platform, allows mentors to have a profile. Now, it doesn't limit them to only industry mentors or academes. It can be anyone who can sign up as mentors, of course, subjected to the approval of the career services teams themselves. So they can then join as long as the career services team has the mentorship capability in their platform, they can do that. They can then facilitate the mentoring journey. They can track milestones and completion, talk to each other, set up invites. So they can do all that within the platform in itself.
Okay, so Sylvia, please hold on to. We have another question from the same person, I guess. So
Yeah.
another question is, how does SeeMeCV encourage alumni to stay connected and engage with their alma mater through this platform?
So there is, unfortunately, I don't have a direct answer to this, like to say that, oh, this is the way. It really does take multiple layers, multiple levels, multiple stakeholders at different stages of their journey. However, we have found some best practices within by encouraging the adoption of technology. Now, these are very much CS or customer success strategies that we have adopted and implemented, such as digests, newsletters, connecting with the alumni to let them know, but understanding what they want to see. Now, what we've found typically is alumni, they hardly open or read networking session notifications or alerts on the next career fair unless they're looking for jobs. So as long as in the alumni profile, we're able to identify what are their needs, at what stage they are, if we do have that information, then we're able to tailor the type of alumni engagement activities to keep them engaged on the portal.
Okay, thank you so much. There's another interesting question, a question by Anonymous. So the question is that, what is your operational definition of employment? Are non-aligned jobs or further studies counted as employment? How about employability? That's an interesting question. Are there any speakers, anyone would like to address this? Bernard, would you like to share your perspective on this question?
Oh, I would say non-alignment of is still valuable employment. Like I started with the example on a multidisciplinary. Well, I can speak in my case as an electronics engineer. I'm in management, but I started my career in electronics industry, being exposed to entrepreneurship, and I think it's a unique journey for each one. Wherever the opportunity is, you'll find other of our our graduates in the IT who are in esports working in that industry are sort of related, but not something that they studied back in college. So I think doors will be open once you're working, and it's up to the person to choose those. When you come to the forks in the road, and I guess that's where the mentorship comes in. If you see an alumni in both fields, if you have to choose between the two, you have to reach out, or vice versa. There has to be a platform where the person who wants to choose either would have that information rather than just come in head without any knowledge. So I think that's one important. I don't know that platform if that is in SeeMeCV.
Okay, Bernard, there's another question like you to answer, because you have mentioned what challenges you have faced when you have been using alumni tracer study, where you didn't get much response from them, from the alumni. So there's a question from Anonymous, is that, do you have other ways of addressing low response rate in alumni survey apart from maintaining the relationship with alumni and partner industries, perhaps a unique or a creative one?
Wow. Well, I guess it's a relationship building question. They won't answer if it's just a cold email. They have the chairs or the deans have to call them and maybe ask them how they are. Or, for example, our graduates in civil engineering, we call them to help solve a problem in our school. And that's as a starting point to get together, have a meal together. Maybe it's just, well, in the context of the Philippines, we love to eat. So there has to be that social gathering before anything serious. But sometimes it starts with a social gathering, and then they start talking about, oh, what can we do? For example, we gather the previous student government presidents. So these are the student leaders already for the last 10 years. So we gather them, just check how they are, and they already have in them to think of, oh, what can we do to give back to our school? So these are student leaders already. So it starts with them, and they trickle down. They are the ones who call their batchmates, the student government of their batch, and then it snowballs from there. Well, we tried it once. We haven't, that's a concept, but maybe you could try it, and it could, something good might come up of this one.
Yeah.
Thank
Maybe
you.
I can also chip in. Definitely relationship is very key, right? I mean, it's like, and one of the thing my team here always share is actually the relationship that the career coach has built with the students over the years, right? So that's one. The second one that I find it very useful is actually LinkedIn. Yeah, because all of us, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm very much into LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a good platform for us to engage back our own alum, right? Because they will all indicate where is the university they graduate from. So we use LinkedIn a lot in our office. Yeah, and also in a way engaging alumni.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have the last 4 minutes left, unfortunately. So just try to, sorry. Yeah, Bernard, please go ahead.
Gita, I just remembered, you can also have alumni awards. So we have alumni awardees who are from 5 years to 10 years, 10 to 15. So they're the ones who we have that call, and of course they're proud to share what they've done. And so we do that as well. We award alumni, and we have a wall of fame, and we're developing like a Hollywood Walk of Fame. So things like that. So they'll be proud to come back to the school, and maybe they want they feel the urge to contribute, not something financial because they may not have that yet, but in terms of connecting us, like it has really happened. Alumni in the US connecting us with uh, association in New York came here, and it blossomed from there. So they can do that as well.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Bernard. And yes, maybe food can be an answer to have a lot of people and connect well, and perhaps also make them a celebrity to have the awards. I think that's a brilliant idea. Thank you. And since we have 3 minutes left, we can answer maybe last question. So there's one question that is asked by Namita. So the question is how universities can leverage their alumni network to boost student recruitment efforts. That is a very interesting and very important question. Any speakers would like to take this? Yes, Corinne.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, actually, this really pans out during COVID. I think if you were to reflect back when COVID started in 2020 all the way to 2022, we have really alumni to thank for. Because even a lot of employers are freezing headcount because of the uncertainty. So what the university did, is to actually write to alumni, right? And honestly, alumni is the one that actually give us a lot of the job opportunities as well as internship opportunities for our students.
Thank you. Bernard, you raise your hand. Please go ahead.
Well, yeah, same thing. If you could reach out to your alumni in your tracer study who are already HR managers, it would be easier to convince them why to hire, because your school nurtures the next superstar or rock star employee. We had this PACU webinar on how to nurture the rock star teacher. So what is the profile of a rock star teacher according to the students? We have to remember these are students from different generations now, and from a different generation from our students now. So we have to know what is important to them. So it's also to understand the generational differences And social media plays a huge role. We have our marketing department, well, is now has grown from one person to almost 10 already. So it's really important. And same with career services. How do we communicate that we are nurturing the next potential asset for your in the company? Thank you, Gita.
Thank you so much, Bernard. That is very interesting. And yes, it is important to have that focus on how faculty can play a role, students, alumni, all the important stakeholders can play a role in this. So unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today, I'm afraid. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sylvia, Corinne, Bernard, and Pak Weekend for joining us today and for sharing wonderful insights about how we can have rock stars and assets for the next generation, understand the generation. So that is a very important point. So thank you for sharing all your perspectives, and to all our audience for joining us today. Thank you for sharing all the questions. It's very interesting and very pertinent questions of ours. Thank you for joining the webinar today. So everyone who is registered for this event will receive the full on-demand version of this webinar, which will be hosted on the THE website along with a summary article of its key findings for those of you who would like to revisit or share this content. So we look forward to seeing everyone in the future THE events. So until next time, thank you, goodbye, and have a good day ahead.